today to speak. It's a real privilege to share space, particularly on Reconciliation Week. And it's an important time for me to stand here. So during the introduction, I am known for being a spiritual leader, and I've got a very unique message to share. So I hope that my words today, you could listen with your ears, be present, and hopefully that takes you on a bit of a journey of reflection. So I stand here today as a proud Lumpy woman. I'm a mother and someone who carries a deep connection to culture, to story, and to spirit. To many who have walked before me as well. And before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge today that we gather on Kaurna country, the land that always was and always will be Aboriginal land. I pay my respects to elders, past, present and emerging, and I acknowledge the spiritual and cultural connection that the Kaurna people maintain with this land, water and sky. Now, just before I begin, I'd like to acknowledge that my speech does contain personal elements of my journey, my lived experience, my reflections, and it also, I share reflections drawn upon an unpublished spiritual and cultural story. The content that I share today is deeply personal, and whilst I offer this with openness and purpose, I retain full copyright and intellectual property of the words that I speak, the ideas and the story that I'm telling. I'm aware that this presentation may be recorded and that it may be shared publicly. And I kindly ask that my words not be reproduced, quoted or taken out of context, or asked to be used without my prior written consent. And that's only fair to say because, as we know through lived experience, a story is still unfolding. And I trust that you receive this today with the same respect, the care and cultural integrity which I have offered it here today. Thank you. So this week, we stand here today, National Reconciliation Week, which is more than just an annual event. It's a call and it's a collective breath. It's a space for truth, reflection and commitment. And it's not only just to remember the past, but it's to honour as we shape. We're doing sound tests. So yeah, it's a space of truth, reflection and commitment. Not to just remember the past, but to honour it as we shape what comes next. As we know, national reconciliation formalities, they began in 1993, but it wasn't until 1996 that the Council of Aboriginal Reconciliation initiated its first official date of National Reconciliation Week. And I think the most important thing to remember here is that when we seem to forget quickly how generationally it has impacted many people sitting in the room in the wider community, to know that I stand here today, that was my grandmother that went through stories of this. So the 27th of May 1967, it does mark the anniversary of the referendum in which over 90% of Australians voted to amend the Constitution to include Aboriginal people in the census as citizens, which allowed the federal government to create laws for us. The 3rd of June in 1992, it marks the date of the Mabo decision in the High Courts, which recognised the native title, acknowledging that Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples have rights to land. We've got National Sorry Day on the 26th of May, and this acknowledges the mistreatment of Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander peoples, particularly the removal of stolen generations. Children forcibly removed from families under assimilation policies, and this date serves as a reminder of the importance of acknowledging the past wrongs that we've all inherited, and that was really important for me to say. It's about making a commitment to work towards healing together. And we stand here today, 30 plus years later, talking about how we can shape the way of reconciliation. The 2025 theme, which is Bridging Now to Next, it beautifully echoes the truth that is embodied in the heart of our culture, and it reminds us that time is not linear. Past, present and future, they all coexist. They speak to one another like the echoes that our elders that guide us through ceremony, like the whispers of culture and the whispers of country, telling us that we're on the right path and reminding us where we strayed. So this reflection is not just about a big public moment, it's also about our internal journeys. Reconciliation just isn't a word, it's a practice, it's a commitment. And you'll notice I'll repeat a few words because I really want us to embed that. It calls for responsibility and for honouring the old stories while creating new ones to reflect the truth and justice. So let's be honest, we can't build a bridge while ignoring the foundation. We cannot move forward without acknowledging the grief, the loss and the injustice that continues to shape the lives of many First Nation peoples. And truth-telling must come first before reconciliation. So today, while we reflect together, I ask that you listen, not only with your ears, but with your spirit. I invite you to be present, and I invite you to reflect. So I want you to ask yourselves, what stories do I carry? We all have a story. And how can I become a bridge, not to be a bystander in the journey of reconciliation? So I'll just leave us to that reflection for a moment. And as you're thinking about that, you see this work doesn't belong to just one week a year. It belongs to all of us. Every day. It's in our workplaces. It's in our conversations. And to know today we've sat here and we've conversated with each other and we've shared some stories, we've shared journeys, we've shared the amazing fundraising that has happened on the weekend. It belongs in the way we show up, and it belongs in the way that we vote. It belongs in the way that we teach and we lead. Our true stories we transfer. So let's move forward by remembering, by listening, and by sitting in uncomfortable spaces. And I think that's a big thing because it is truly what's uncomfortable, it's the unknown. It's me getting here, breaking through the fear of the allergies that I've had that tried to make me not stand here today. We allow the uncomfortable spaces. We allow the truth of that to guide us, the spirit to hold us, and culture to lead us. So this year's theme, Bridging Now to Next, deeply resonates with me. Not just on a professional work that I do, but in my personal journey as well. And as mentioned, in Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander cultures, time is not linear. Past, present and future are not separate entities. They are threads from the same woven blanket. They're laid and connected, not just through memory, but through spirit, through land, and through stories across this entire country. So my first point I'll be talking about is reconciliation as a spiritual journey. So let's start with what reconciliation really means. So it's not a checklist, and it's not a policy document. It's great to know that we've got RAP committees that are trying to pave the way to supporting Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander communities. But it's a journey. It's a personal, and it's a collective reckoning with the truth. It requires us to look inward at what we carry and what we choose to ignore. It asks us to examine the stories that we've inherited and those that we've silenced. It asks us to honour our connection to one another, to this land, and to the spirit that exists between all things. To reconcile is to remember, and to reconcile is to sit in the truth long enough for it to become wisdom. To reconcile is not to acknowledge history, but to feel it. To understand that colonisation was something that happened a long time ago, but its impact still pulses through the lives of First Nations people and through the loss of language, the disconnection from land, the poor health outcomes, economic marginalisation and systematic racism. That's just to name a few. But the most important part of it actually pulses through our strength. It pulses through the language we're reviving, the stories we're reclaiming, the elders who have survived, who teach us, the young people dreaming into existence. That's our future, and the future that our ancestors have hoped for. This is the story of now, and this is the story of next. So I'll talk about culture as a compass and my journey at Kura Yerlo. So as the CEO of Kura Yerlo, an Aboriginal community-controlled organisation in Port Adelaide, I've had the privilege of witnessing every day what Strait looks like when it's rooted in culture and community. We support our mob across all stages of life, the children's learning to elder care, from disability support to mental health services. But our work isn't just about service delivery, it's about cultural safety. It's about holding space, and it's saying to people that you belong, and you're seen, and you're worthy. And sometimes it's building the bridge of someone who's isolated to their healing. You see, culture isn't something we put on like weeks like this, NAIDOC week, or wear it as a badge. Culture is a compass. It guides how we speak, how we listen, how we grieve, and how we celebrate, and how we care for one another. Culture is present when our elders share a memory. It's there when a child sings a language for the very first time. It's there when someone finds the courage to reach out for help, and they're met not only with shame, but with compassion. And I often say that our programs might be funded by the system, but they're powered by spirit, and this is what's led me to my role today. It's spirit that enables my determination and gives me strength. So the path well travelled and healing through story. So those that may have looked me up or found me on the socials, you might know that I'm writing a book. It's going to be titled The Path Well Travelled. It's a spiritual fiction based on reflections, lived experience, and a deep sense of cultural knowing. The story follows a woman, unnamed of course. She walks many paths at once, and her journey is non-linear, just like life. She moves through memories, through pain, through joy, and through the voices of the ancestors and the echoes of her future self. And as she walks, she begins to understand that healing is not a destination. It's a rhythm, and sometimes it's fast, sometimes it's slow, and sometimes it spirals. She realises that vulnerability is not her weakness, it's her greatest strength. And in the sharing of her truth, even the messy parts, she becomes light for others. That's what story does. It heals, it holds, and it teaches. In Aboriginal culture, like many others, we understand this deeply. And story is just not entertainment. It is knowledge, it's law, and it's medicine. And by me sharing that today, I think we can all resonate with that. So walking the walk, what does reconciliation really require of all of us? So the question becomes, what does it really require? What does it ask of us? Especially to those in positions of leadership, privilege and influence. It asks for truth-telling. It asks for listening, not to respond, but to understand. It asks for an action, not tokenism. We don't need to have all the answers, because we don't, but what we do need to do is just show up. For service organisations, this looks like embedding cultural safety into operations and partnerships, seeking out and uplifting First Nation voices in decision making, supporting local Aboriginal-led initiations with more than just funding. Offer your time, your networks and your advocacy. Acknowledging that reconciliation isn't just about inclusion, it's about justice. And on a personal level, reconciliation looks like teaching your children the true history of this country, the right to freedom of speech, respect, hearing and listening to what needs to be said and done, learning and speaking the names of the First Nation lands which are and interrupting racism, calling it out, sitting in those uncomfortable spaces. It's about choosing humility over defensiveness, and it's about choosing curiosity over judgment. We have to remember that reconciliation isn't about fixing Aboriginal people. It's about healing broken relationships, one that colonisation fractured. The healing must be led by the truth and love, not guilt and obligation. So bridging now to next. As we reflect on this year's theme, I invite you to imagine the bridges that you've crossed in your own life and the ones that you've helped other people cross. And I'm going to give you a moment to do that. As we reflect on those bridges, whether they have been your own personal stories or those you've helped, you may realise that the emotional bridges, they're generational, and they are spiritual without you realising. But whatever they are, they're bridges that have shaped you. Now I want you to imagine the bridges that still need to be built within our communities, within our systems, within our hearts. Where do you stand? Do you see that bridge to be narrow? Are there others there? Can you see both ends, or is it a two-way stream? I ask that these bridges not be metaphoric, but I do need them to be practical, and that's what I call for today. We need bridges between education systems and cultural knowledge. We need bridges between health systems and cultural healing practices. We need bridges between the corporate world and community-led innovations. We need bridges that hold the weight of both past injustice and future hope, and strong enough to carry the truth, the sorrow, the accountability, and the transformation of what we've suffered and inherited. Again, so the question is, what is next? We need people to be willing to be that bridge. We need people who don't just walk over it, and we need people to become the foundation of it, who honour the old ways, who walk beside to continue building the relationships with First Nation people now, and prepare for the path of the better future for all of us, a future where we can all thrive. So my final reflection, in my book, there's a moment where she realises that her path, with all its twists, setbacks and revelations, it was never a detour, it was the way. Everything that she carried, the joy, the grief, the questions, was shaping the person who she was and who she was meant to be. I believe this is true for all of us, especially as a nation. We're not lost, we're being here to be called to slow down, to sit in the hard truths, to lean into discomfort, to listen to country, to honour culture and repair those fractures. Not for the sake of the First Nations people, but for the spirit of this land, for the soul of this nation and the next generation, who are here watching us and asking, what will you do for a reconciled future? What will you leave behind? So as I close today, to all of you that sit in this room, I thank you for walking this journey. I thank you for showing up, but remembering that it doesn't stop here. I take this reflection and let it move you into action from purpose. Let it remind you that reconciliation isn't a single week, it's a long life rhythm, a commitment and a sacred remembering. May we all welcome and become the bridges between the truth and hope, between the past that still lives and the future that is calling us. And may we walk together respectfully with the open hearts and steady hands on the path well travelled and the path yet to come. I thank the Rotary Club, Kenise Neil, and the special guests that have attended today to listen to me, part of reconciliation. And thank you all for listening to this week's call.